It's now my pleasure to introduce our two amazing hosts for AI Club, Christopher Monnier and Matt Gallivan. They met about 10 years ago on the research team at Airbnb. Their paths, of course, diverged, but both of them had a very strong interest in AI. Um, Chris worked for an AI startup. Matt had an AI newsletter. So they're really two remarkable people to come together to host this session today. Um, they both wound up in different places, but researching AI. Christopher is at Microsoft, and Matt is at Anthropic. It is really a pleasure to welcome them both today, and I turn the time over to you.
All right, cool. Thanks for that super nice intro. Let me get the slides queued up.
It was nice hearing our meet cute told back to us, Chris.
It was great.
Yeah.
Good old days. That was, I know there's some Airbnb, former and current Airbnb researchers on the call. Those are the good old days. Airbnb research, we had a lot of fun. Okay, we should get started. We have so much to get through. We have a ton of questions. Thanks to everybody who submitted questions during the sign-up process. We want to make this like a big discussion, have a lot of Q&A. So Matt and I have some slides queued up. We're going to go through those as quick as we can, and then hopefully have time for questions. All right, so let's get going. Well, we already did this about us. Maybe something to call out is just the products that between Matt and I, the things we have, the products, the AI moderated interview products we've used: Outset, Genway, Listen, Maze. There's even more that we haven't had the chance to use, but we both used some combination of these. I've done this now at 3 different companies. Matt, do you want to say a little bit about how you've used these products and that type of thing?
Yeah, sure. As Raymond mentioned, when I was in between gigs prior to joining Anthropic, I had started a newsletter about user behavior and interactions and sentiment about AI. And as part of that project, Outset and Genway, they were both very generous and offered me some use of their tools and used them to great effect. And I've used some other platforms as well, and make use of AI moderated tools at Anthropic as well.
Cool. Yeah, I'll just say the one that I've used Outset the most. So like that's most of my like practical experiences grounded in that. Matt and I tried to craft this as like general sort of advice, best practices, regardless of the tool. It should be tool agnostic. But just so you know, that's where sort of our experience has been. All right, cool. So AI Club, Raymond mentioned this. We have a Slack group. You can scan the QR code and join. We can put it in the chat too at some point. But the sort of idea is it's sort of like a community-driven idea to help us UX researchers keep up with the latest AI-powered research tools so that we all can collectively shape how our discipline evolves, right? And we want to be active shapers of the future of this, and AI is definitely playing a role. The goal is to like help all of us, not just be passengers on the AI train. All right, cool. So yes, and in that vein, the goal today is to help you all learn, help all of us learn, probably, I'm sure Matt and I will learn some stuff too, about the different tools that are out there, the best practices, based on what we've learned. We've tried, failed, done a lot of good and bad things with these tools, and yeah, we're excited to share our learnings with you guys. So first, we'll talk through briefly like why this matters, like why is this even relevant? Maybe that's obvious, but we want to articulate a couple things. We'll walk through sort of the practical steps and like best practices of how to set up one of these studies, again, tool agnostic, and then we'll save the bulk of the time for Q&A. All right, so first, why this matters. Matt, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, sure. I think one thing that I've heard from people when I talk to them about these new tools is like, oh yeah, it's cool. They're asynchronous. They operate at scale. They can operate across languages. But don't we already have a tool that does that called surveys? Yes, it's totally true, totally fair. But I think the benefit of these tools that I've found to be really, really great is that it does enable the ability to offer dynamic follow-ups to specific questions that you ask, based on the inputs from a respondent and a participant, which is really, really cool and really powerful once you learn how to tame it a little bit. And we'll talk about that as we go along. Secondly, I think we all, as user researchers, know sort of the power, the unique power of video as a storytelling tool. These are just really great tools for gathering a lot of compelling video at scale. You can really explore really awesome new ways to share your findings that, and really build deep customer empathy with your stakeholders just by virtue of having a lot more video to work with. I've also found, I don't know that this is something that these tools talk a lot about. I think we have some founders on the call today of some of these tools. Hello out there, friends. It's great to have you here. But if I were in your shoes, I might be talking about this as a value prop. I have found that video responses are a great built-in fraud detection tool. We'll talk a little bit about that as well, because as powerful and cool as these platforms are, they're not immune to instances of participant fraud.
The best is when I had a study, Matt, where I had a participant actually had their phone in view as they were reading from it, answering like, obviously fraud.
Yep. Yep.
Some people are a little more clever than that, but that's a good deal. All right. So right. So another sort of thing that, so not only are these like a little bit different than the surveys of some of the other tools of the past, but there's some things that are uniquely possible with these tools. So first of all, this idea of like asynchronous richness. So like, you know, one of the nice things about unmoderated studies, whether it's like through user testing or like a diary study type thing, is that people can do things on their own time. The same is true with this. But then you also get the richness that you would want from a one-on-one interview. I wouldn't say you get as much richness. We can talk more about that. But you still get, like Matt said, like rich video clips, people talking about things, and they're doing it on their own time rather than at a time slot that works for the researcher if you're doing a one-on-one regular interview. The other thing is you can do quant and qual like simultaneously, because these are sort of like infinitely scalable. It's just a matter of money and like participant pool. But the nice thing is like sort of the fact you can both of these at the same time. So it used to be sort of a classic 1-2 punch was you do some interviews, you get a sense of what's going on, then you do a survey to quantify those insights. Now you can do those at the same time, which just speeds things along. But another thing it adds is that you can have, like, it's weird if you are interviewing someone and you ask them a survey question, to what extent do you feel blah, 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 on a scale of 1 to 5? Like, no, that's awkward. But you can totally do that in one of these AI moderated interview things, because it just feels natural. And then you can have people, so you can ask very structured questions. You can have people give a rating or whatever, however you want to structure that, and then ask follow-up questions specific to that. And it's just it's a move that you can't really do in like a regular interview, which allows for like really focused responses around a given thing. So you have this like sort of nice sort of, you can sort of go where the participant takes you aspect of an interview with like very focused dives on specific things. And then, yeah, the last point sort of obvious, you can easily scale qual research. This comes in handy. Let's say you do some interviews. This will probably come up again, but I definitely recommend doing some one-on-one interviews yourself in addition to doing these AI moderated interviews. We can talk more about why that is. But let's say you do some of that and you're like, oh man, I feel like I'm onto something. I feel like there's something here. I want to get more clips about a given topic. I want people to talk more about X. It's really easy then to just flip one of these on and get 10, 20, 50 videos or whatever it is about the same thing in a way that would have been a lot harder to do, to spin up another round of like one-on-one human moderated interviews. This is just a way you can do that really easily. Okay, cool. Matt, this is your slide, I think.
Yeah, great. So one thing Chris and I wanted to be sure to say in this call is that we're not trying to position ourselves as experts or shills. This is something that is a new tool in all of our toolkits, and it's something that both Chris and I have found to be uniquely valuable and really cool and fun and exciting to play with. But it's also important to say that like this tool and this method, as with every other tool and every other method, has its limitations, has its time and place, and most importantly, really needs your deep involvement as a researcher to be employed well. I think a lot of these tools are, these are businesses, they're B2B SaaS businesses. They want to land and expand. They want and have every incentive in the world to have research be democratized within organizations. I think that's all well and good. I think that's great. I don't think that threatens us in the least, because I think when a researcher uses a tool like this, the output is markedly different and markedly better than when an everyday person uses it, or someone who's not trained in research uses it. That is not to say it's not valuable for those people. It's hugely valuable, but it can do both, which is great. Another really important point that we want to communicate is that, and I think this is a broader point about AI generally, is that it's not a shortcut to knowledge. These tools are not a shortcut to you doing your job well as a researcher, to really fully internalizing and embodying what you learn with your work and communicating it with your partners at your job, and trying to make good decisions. Chris sent me a text a few weeks ago with this video clip that we're about to see. This is an interview with Ezra Klein about writing, but the thought resonated with Chris, really resonated with me. And I think as was with most things, Ezra Klein does a better job explaining it than Chris or I could. So Chris, do you want to click the link and we can watch that 1-minute clip?
I think I used to conceptualize knowledge the way you see it in the movie The Matrix, where it's like I wanted the port in the back of my mind that the little needle would go into. And then I had read John Rawls's Political Liberalism.
Right.
I thought that what you were doing was like downloading information into your brain. And now I think that what you are doing is spending time grappling with the text, making connections that will only happen through that process of grappling. And so the idea that you could speed run that, the idea that it could just be summarized for you, part of what is happening when you spend 7 hours reading a book is you spend 7 hours with your mind on this topic. The idea that O3 can summarize it for you, in addition to there's all this stuff you just will not have read, is that you didn't have the engagement. It doesn't impress itself upon you. It doesn't change you. What knowledge is supposed to do is change you. And I think I used to conceptualize knowledge.
So, yeah, we wanted to share that because that thought resonated with both of us as researchers. The point of doing this work is for the knowledge to change you, to change your organization. There are a lot of ways to do that, to gather knowledge quicker, but there's not a shortcut yet for internalizing knowledge more quickly. So we think that's a really essential thing to be aware of as you wade into these new waters.
All right, now let's get into the meat of it. So this is sort of the overview of like the life cycle of one of these studies. It's similar to like any other study you would do. You create your guide, you select your sample, you launch your study, you do your analysis. But there's like some specifics around how you do these steps that I think are a little bit different for one of these studies. We got a lot of questions about like, how are these different? How is it different to set up one of these studies? Hopefully this speaks to some of that, but definitely if you have questions, hopefully this generates new questions. We want to get to those, so we'll go through this sort of quickly. All right, so the very first thing is to create your discussion guide. And maybe one of the most important points is this very first one, to keep it structured. And it's hard to explain what that really means until you get in and try it. But really, like, you shouldn't think, as sort of Matt alluded to, as the AI as some sort of magical thing that can just figure everything out for you. It's not there yet. Maybe in the future it will be. You can just say, I want to know about X, and it will give you a perfectly structured guide that perfectly works. But right now, that's not how it works. So what we found is that you really sort of need to be very detailed and specific about what you want, and to not like, you don't want to like double barrel questions. You don't want to have like multiple topics in the same thing. You have to be very clear and keep your questions to like one specific topic, and your follow-ups to also be about that one specific topic. The AI is, I don't think, good enough to just sort of go off on its own and like do a great, like a great human interviewer will sort of figure out where there might be something interesting and then come to that sort of over time and do this really great like spiral of knowledge. The AI doesn't do that yet. So for now, it's just keep it really structured, one topic at a time with some follow-ups. and to really make sure that you're not confusing the AI, because if you confuse the AI will then have what will result is like sort of a bad participant experience where it's sort of muddled questions that don't really make sense. You might get a lot of repetition. Whereas if you keep it really structured when setting up the guide, you'll end up getting better results that flow better, where the interview just flows a little bit better. The second point, be specific, is the same thing. You just want to think really hard about how you word the questions. Use AI, use the built-in tools. A lot of these products have built-in like discussion guide generators. That's cool. Try that. Otherwise, iterate your questions on your LLM of choice to really get specific. We'll talk about this too, but like you want to try the interview guide out yourself to like play the role of like a naive user and like, do you really understand what the question is asking? Because it's sort of like garbage in, garbage out. You want to make sure that the guide is as structured and specific as possible. Matt, do you want to say a couple more words? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go off script a little bit to say that one of my favorite moments in our preparation for this presentation, Chris, was when we were both like, do you sometimes start a study without really writing a discussion guide? And we're like, yeah, kind of like it. Because, you can kind of, when you've been doing this work a while, you know what you want to learn, you know how to go about doing it. And that's the wonderful, that's the wonderful flexibility of human moderated qualitative research. But you can't obviously take that type of approach with these tools. You do have to be very, very objective and results oriented, and know what exactly you want to learn and how exactly you want to go about it. I think we have heard from some of the Q&A that came in preparation for the event, and in some of the Slack group conversations, that people have tried some of these tools as a participant and found that they can tend to belabor a point and ask you 5 follow-up questions about the same thing you've already told them over and over again. That is absolutely a risk with these things. And you as a researcher have to build an intuition around when that is likely to happen and how to design a discussion guide and a study within these tools to avoid that moment, because that will definitely lead to participant burnout. It won't get you useful data, and it will be just a bad participant experience.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Do you want to speak to this one, Matt?
Yes, absolutely. So, Chris and I recognize we're boiling down sort of the journey of a research study to its real essence here. So there are obviously more granular steps than all of these, but we're trying to touch on the big milestones. Thinking about sampling, of course, as with any other tool, you should definitely be mindful of the biases that the method itself will exert upon your data, and the ways in which the method will influence the data you collect. People who are averse to AI in particular will probably be less inclined to participate in research that's moderated by AI. And of course, tech savviness, there's probably a indirect relationship there as well. Mentioned this earlier, but these tools are not immune to the problem of research participant fraud. A lot of them have panels baked into them, which is a really great and powerful feature. You as a researcher, if you're doing research that is general population, being able to just click a few buttons and say, I want people this age, this geographical region who spend 75% or more of their day on a laptop, yada yada yada. That's just really powerful. But those panels, whether they're in a lot of these tools partner with sample providers like Prolific or what have you, those pre-screened criteria don't always accurately reflect the people you're going to get. So the one best practice I found is that I really have to screen like crazy. I described it here as designing sneaky and robust screeners. I try to trip people up with my screeners, I try to include a lot of like fake features or fake products to see if I get people selecting them as things that they use. And if they do, of course, they're out. So you do have to be really vigilant about who's making their way to your study in the first place. And the last point here is to, bring your own sample if you can. I think Chris and I have both observed that when we do research with our own customers, with our own lists, we do see higher quality results, generally speaking, because you are doing away with a lot of those unknowns about how familiar people might be with the things that you're hoping to learn about.
Couple things. First, +1 on the fake answers in the screener. That's one of my favorite things to do, is imagine fake product names. Usually not related to the thing I'm researching. It's just like a fake streaming service or a fake whatever AI app game. Like it's really fun. But Matt, I wanted to ask you about the bring your own screener or bring your own sample.
Yeah.
How do you, like, if you're doing that, how do you typically, do you make the participants aware ahead of time that this is going to be an AI interview rather than, I don't know, a survey or like a traditional human moderated interview? Like, is that
Yeah.
the front? Yeah, go ahead.
The way we typically handle it is, we'll send out an email invitation to participate. Obviously, like whenever we can, we offer a small incentive because that, of course, really helps with the response rates. And we, in the email invitation, we do explicitly say the vendor that the study is hosted on, and that's something that our legal team suggests we do as a best practice. I think it's a great thing to do regardless, and to let the participants know that the experience is going to be different. It's not going to be a traditional survey. They're going to be speaking to their computer. They should find a quiet place when they have X number of minutes to spare to speak into their phone or into their computer to be interviewed by an AI voiced or an AI written interviewer.
Cool. Thanks. All right. So then obviously now it's time to launch it. Once you sort of select your sample, time to launch a study. I think we can't underscore enough how important it is to soft launch the study. Every time I do one of these, I feel like I totally got it. Like, it's just like when, sending an email or a Slack message and you're like, oh, shoot. And you go back and edit it. Like you never catch all the errors before you actually submit it. So like, same is true with this. I usually get to like V5 by the time I like really turn up the dial and like launch it to the full group. Because whether it's like typos, those are the easy ones to catch, but really what you're looking for is these other things that are outlined here: respondent quality, response quality, and the participant experience. So like, watch some video, you launch it to 5 people, watch some videos, sort of see like, oh, is this awkward? Are participants getting frustrated by like repeat follow-up questions? Am I getting the right type of people? Or am I getting a lot of fraudsters? Should I be a little more picky on my screening? Am I getting the right type of people in general? Do they fit the type of people I had in mind? And the response quality, especially, like, am I getting the types of answers about the types of topics that I want? Or do I have to do a better job of like wording the question? Is my question too muddled? Do I have to break up? One of the things Matt and I both agreed that we do is, like, a lot of times we'll be writing these guides. We'll have what we think is a good question. And then after trying it ourselves or after having other people try it, you realize, this one question that I thought was really good, I actually have to break it into 2 questions. It's too double-barreled or multi-barreled. Like, there's just too much going on. The AI is inconsistently asking the different types of follow-up questions. It's not always working the way I want it. So like that, those are the types of iterations that tend to happen once you do one of these soft launches. And again, it's like 2 to 3, 4 rounds of this before I feel really confident that I've gotten all. You should also probably do some analysis while you're doing this. Just like the qualitative stuff of reviewing the videos, but if you have enough, you can start to look at distributions of responses to like survey questions. If you have those sprinkled in there, am I getting the right, am I overly biased about one thing? Should I change my question wording? There's so much you can learn, and it's so easy to do this like soft launch thing. It's just a matter of like, instead of launching to 20 people, launching to like 3, and then like once you feel good, changing the number. It's like, I again can't recommend it enough. Every single time I do one of these, it works. Anything to add, Matt? Did I miss anything?
Nothing to add. No, that about covers it. Yeah.
All right. Then finally, the analysis. I sort of hinted at this. As results are coming in, I think it's really good to just start watching videos. Like, why not? It's always good to see like, the very first tidbits of what you're going to learn. If you scale this enough up to enough participants, it will be probably won't be able to watch every single video. But the built-in analysis tools will help you hone in on like particular videos that probably are good to watch. Like people who said something that fits a given theme. These tools, the analysis that they have is really good at like identifying themes. LLMs are like notoriously good at that. You put in a bunch of stuff, it'll extract the 5 or 10 key themes. That's a really good shortcut to finding like what are the people who talked about theme X? Like what are they saying? Oh, and then you watch those videos and you're like, oh, that's a good person. I'm gonna watch like these 5 videos because they are talking about the type of thing that I'm especially interested in. So that's sort of from a qualitative standpoint, I think one way to sort of kick off this analysis. Matt, do you want to talk a little bit more about some of the other elements on the slide?
Sure. So one thing that both Chris and I have had success doing is using LLM chatbots either as a baked-in part of the analysis experience in these tools, or as standalone apps. You will be unsurprised to hear that I often just do a raw CSV export of all of my responses, put them into Claude, and do a lot of my analysis in partnership with Claude. I think there are a lot of very good questions and concerns about the accuracy of doing that, about these tools' tendency to hallucinate and make things up. I think my experience has been that a very healthy combination of your good human judgment and review of a random subset of your data is more than sufficient to build your level of confidence in what you see the LLM producing. I also sort of counterintuitively have found that the thing that these tools are particularly bad at is developing a compelling high-level narrative of your findings. I think they are actually very good at finding sub-themes and smaller themes that are components of that high-level narrative. I think intuitively you might imagine the opposite to be true, that LLMs will just flatten the richness out of your data, suck all the life out of it, and come up with one very boring, succinct, high-level summary. I've found the complete opposite to be true. Actually, I've found these tools to be extremely good at analyzing large subsets of data at a high level of detail. And in fact, one of the challenges I've had with a lot of the tools that are out there and the analysis parts of those products is that they can overanalyze stuff, that they can find connections that aren't meaningful, that you can easily find yourself awash in just a sea of qualitative data and themes. So you still very much as the researcher need to exercise a lot of your judgment and discretion in terms of teasing out what is important and what is not. That isn't to say this stuff isn't valuable. The amount of time this saves is unbelievable. And the last and most important point on analysis here is this last one about bringing your context. The one thing, no research platform can do and no LLM chatbot can do is have all of the context that you do about what you're trying to accomplish at your organization, what your team needs to learn in order to make very specific decisions. Like you as the owner of that context are the most important part of the analysis process, and making sure that the right things land with the right people is still something that you will still very much have to take ownership of.
Yeah, I'll just like add on to that. Like Matt and I were talking, like I think we both think, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, that this is becoming more important. This last part of bringing your context, creating the narrative, and finding how to embed that narrative in people's minds is becoming relatively more important because we're able to spend more time on it rather than, spending like 3 days going through like every single interview and coding it into themes. Now that can happen almost instantly which allows you to spend your time, figuring out what's the most important thing for my stakeholders to know, rather than giving them this giant like automated report with all these themes that's like doesn't have a narrative. Now it's on me to construct that narrative, to figure out what's most salient at this moment, at this time for my company. Anything else to add, Matt? Like, yeah.
Nope, I think you've said it beautifully. I couldn't agree more. Yep.
All right. Nice. Okay, I think we're pretty much done. Yes, perfect. Q&A. So thanks to everybody who submitted questions in the sign up process. We've gone through and like pulled some of them out. Some of these are like synthesized versions because there were like sometimes multiple questions on the same theme. I think Matt and I both really, when we saw this one come in, this first one, we were like, oh, this is a good one. This really maybe strikes a chord. So the first one, is it cheating? Why does it feel like cheating, AI moderated interviews? Have our brains been trained to think that till we do it all ourselves, it's not real work? Matt, do you want to take this one? This is a good one.
I mean, I love this question so much because it hit me to my core. I think my first few months at Anthropic have been like a journey of me coming to terms with exactly this feeling. I'm like, what is it that my job is here? Because Claude seems to be pretty darn good at all of this stuff. But the more time I've spent working with, both the AI moderated research tools and, analyzing data with Claude and using AI in really every part of the research process, the more I've realized that no, like there's no way that the output would be as good without me here. There's still all sorts of value I'm bringing to the table. And yeah, it does still feel a little bit like cheating because, we can probably skip to the upper right quadrant here, Chris, and talk a bit about time savings. These tools absolutely save time. I think I wouldn't say these tools have doubled my output. My best guess, if I were forced to put a number on it, is that my output as a researcher has gone up probably 20%, 25%. By virtue of using these tools. And one thing that we also talked about, Chris, in preparation for today was the fact that, while we both still do a lot of human moderated qualitative research, a lot of the time we just say, why would I not also do some AI moderated research in conjunction with this? The cost is so low. It is so easy to spin something up. It is so quick to get some results out of it. And yeah, it's really, really powerful and really does feel like you have a superpower.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like it's like maybe because it was like such a dramatic step change, it's like, oh my gosh, overnight, almost you start to use these tools and you can get so far so quickly. It feels like it feels more like cheating than if it was a more gradual type of thing that you just sort of, everything gets a little more efficient over time. So it like suddenly got way more efficient. Yeah, the point, I think there's an opportunity cost to not doing these. Obviously, like it doesn't work for every organization. You can't always just spin one of these up. There's like financial constraints and whatever, but like if you can, and all things considered, the like financial cost is pretty low. I think there's so much that you can get from these, even if it's just, a couple more perspectives from the versus the people that you interviewed yourself, that in a weird way, you can actually save time by doing more of these. You like spin one of these up overnight, let it run overnight, and then you might have some more video clips in the morning that actually articulate the point you're trying to make in your deck or whatever, the narrative you're building, faster than it would be to go through and look through all the video clips that you've collected yourself. Sometimes that can be a slog. So there's multiple ways to save time. It's not just like, oh, and now I don't have to do the interviews. I think having this wealth of data to pull from, I know I'll really stress out. I want to find the exact right video clip that just articulates everything perfectly. Because as Matt said, videos are so important. And this can be just a great way to gather more video. And who knows, you might end up finding the person that just says it exactly right. One of those participants that just articulates things perfectly. Maybe that's another way that the time savings manifest. What about accuracy of analysis? I know, Matt, you already talked about this. Like things to look out for. You mentioned like spot checking. We had other questions around like hallucinations and like how do you sort of control for that? How do you beyond spot checking, or maybe that's it. Like, how do you get
Mhm.
a sense of like whether you can really trust the analysis that's happening, the themes that are being extracted from these interviews?
I mean, I don't know about you, Chris, but I never take the results of an LLM generated analysis at face value without doing some sort of sniff test on my own. And I do think that just means going into your raw data, seeing if you can view evidence that the model has claimed to find, and that you agree with the level of saturation that it subjectively has applied to that theme.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wish I had some silver bullet to this. I think it is good to be skeptical. If you are skeptical of this as an analysis approach, it means you have a great researcher's mind. Never lose that skepticism, but don't reject it out of hand. I mean, there are ways that you can validate, right? I think the risk in that approach is, will you just end up confirming your own biases? If you see a theme emerge that looks interesting to you, will you dive into your raw data and just look for more confirmatory evidence of it? Maybe. I think we're never going to escape these questions around biases and how they influence our analysis. I would argue that we're probably more prone, or we're more prone to that in the world before LLMs, though, than we are in the world post LLMs.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Like I a lot of times I sometimes, I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, won't feel like I've completed my like analysis or synthesis. Even of like, say I interview 10 people, I'm like, oh, I think this is what's going on. I feel like I almost have to run it through an LLM just as like a double check. Like, well,
Sure.
did I miss, or how am I biased? So I think just having that additional perspective can, like, your excellent human judgment paired with the LLM sort of, I don't know, judgment, whatever it is, like I think ends up puts you in a more accurate place. But I would say like it's like 1 + 1 = 3, or at least 2, rather than like individually. Like as a human, I'll make mistakes. As an LLM, it'll make mistakes. But if you work together with the LLM, I think you can overcome a lot of those, and like sort of.
Yeah. And I think this is the mental model leap that a lot of people have undertaken over the last couple of years as we've grown accustomed to using these tools effectively. I think we now all intuitively understand that the more we interact and engage and actively collaborate with these tools, the more effective they are.
Yeah.
And that's because of all the reasons you just mentioned, Chris.
Cool. All right. What else? Oh, the participant experience. We had a lot of questions about this. So like maybe I can speak to some of these really quick. Like, so participants know that they're talking to an AI. Like Matt said, that's whether you put that in the email that invites people, or even if you don't, by the time before they hit the survey, or the survey, the interview, whatever you want to call it, it's clear that they're talking to an AI interviewer. There's no like, I mean, they could of course fail to read that, but I think it's pretty obvious once they start. And so participants know they're talking to an AI. Regarding like repeating themselves, I think what we said before is, I don't know, I can't reiterate enough. Just keep it really well structured and try it yourself until you feel confident that it's always working as predicted, like regardless of how you answer it. Like, because that'll just give you confidence that it's not going to repeat itself. One thing, a failure mode that I have fallen into myself is over probing. It's very tantalizing. Some of the tools have different like levels of like probe depthness, and it's really I always want to turn the probe up all the way, because I'm like, well, why wouldn't I? I want to know as much as I can.
Yeah.
And then I've tried that, and then I think a lot of times that's where you run into this repeat thing where the AI thinks it's being smart by rephrasing the question, but you just get the same thing. But the AI doesn't know that it's like, oh, okay, this participant's getting frustrated. It just keeps asking. The AI is very diligent. It will do exactly what you say, but it's not good at like being like, the participant, clearly this isn't worth the additional drilling. If you want to add anything, Matt, but yeah.
Yeah, no, 100% be very wary of those probe levels that you set in these tools. I always err very much on the side of minimal probing. It's a delicate dance because, like I said at the beginning, one of the values of these tools is compared to something like a static survey or a static unmoderated interview session is that you can pick up on things and follow up on them. And Chris is totally right. When you first play with one of these tools, you'll be like, oh yeah, like crank it up. Like, let's just go as deep as we can. But that's just going to be a brutal, tedious, ridiculous participant experience, and it won't help your work. It just won't. So like that is one of the skills you have to sort of learn over time as you use these things more and more. And testing your interview after you code it is just so essential. And soft launching and watching all those first 3 to 5 videos is so essential for this very reason.
Yep. Okay, maybe I'll summarize one more of these, and then I want to get to questions. I know it's getting late. So the last one about context management, I think that is related. So like, can the AI keep track of like the whole conversation? Does it understand the follow-ups? Can it keep track of tasks? Like, I feel like it's getting better, but it's still not perfect. That's why I feel like, and it's related to the second question too, is it better to give the AI broad goals and have it figure out the follow-ups, or better to ask detailed questions with sort of like structured follow-ups? I think it's like, don't think the AI is, probably err on the side of the AI not being as magical as you wish it were. Like, it doesn't seem to be as good at, it might be able to consider all the context, but it won't be great at like prioritizing. Like, as a human, you can be 35 minutes into an interview and hear one thing that the person says and recall something that said 5 minutes into the conversation, connect the dots, and you know that's relevant. The AI can't do that. Like, maybe in the future it will be able to, I'm sure it will. But for now, it's like you want to just stay more structured, more one topic at a time. And that is a limitation. You can't, it's not, and it's like these methods are not as explorative as a true like 1.5 hour one-on-one moderated interview where you're really connecting with a participant and they're like spilling their guts and you ask them something and maybe they even cry. Like, I haven't seen anybody cry on one of these AI moderated interviews yet. You just don't get quite that level of depth. So I'm sure we'll get there with the context and really being able to understand all the nuances, but it's not quite there yet. Okay, anything else to add, Matt, before we go to other questions?
No, but I would just sort of echo what you just said, that like, I think the different AI moderated platforms all have a slightly different user experience philosophy and approach on this question. Some are much more objective driven and high level driven, and they say, what do you want to learn? We'll just set our agent loose and talk to people on your behalf to try to learn. Others are much more structured, say like, hey, treat this like you're designing a survey. I think we're at a point now where like we have to sort of make accommodations for the limitations of the models. I think you're absolutely right, Chris, that one day, and probably sooner than we all think it is, we're going to get to a place where we don't have to be that specific, where we just say, my objective is this, go figure it out. And these models will be capable of doing that in a really efficient and not tedious way.
Yep. Okay, cool. So I know I haven't been able to keep up with the
No, you're good. You're good.
comments.
I
Yeah,
got
go ahead.
this.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had a flood of questions come through, and I have done my best to categorize them into some sections that I don't think you addressed throughout the conversation. Okay, so there was a series of questions from a couple folks, Chris, Antarika, Aaron, and Brad, asked sort of similar overlapping questions about AI moderators specifically. Like, do you get the sense that people are more honest with AI moderators than humans? Sort of the human to AI interaction vibes. Is there any research done to show any difference in how participants respond to AI moderators versus human-led? Does it feel more private to be talking to an AI? Or because both sessions are recorded and participants are aware, is it just a vibes thing? Like, do you see AI as an adoption barrier or humans as an adoption barrier? Or have you done any study on like what people tend to choose when they're given an option and how it impacts your results? So that's a lot, but it's really talking about how do humans respond when they know they're given the option between a human or an AI?
Do you have any, Matt, I know you did a lot of like research, like about not necessarily this. I'm just curious, like when you were writing your Substack, did this come up, or I have some thoughts, but
yeah, not explicitly, but like, and I'd imagine our thoughts are pretty well aligned here, Chris, even though we haven't talked about this, but I'll just say that I it is mostly vibes. I think I've seen some research. I think Outset has done some research on this. I think Genway has done some research on this. I have no reason to doubt their findings, despite the fact that the findings are pretty beneficial to the platforms, which is that, yes, people do tend to shed like social desirability bias when they know that there is not another human being on the other end of the line. I think slightly adjacent evidence of that you will observe as you use these platforms is the number of shirtless dudes that observe taking your interview. People, it takes all kinds. And I believe that to be true. Again, don't have a ton of like literature to point to support it, but the going on vibes, I would say that I believe that to be true.
Totally agree. Like the shirtless, it is crazy. People in bed, people.
Oh yeah, so many people in bed.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a film fall on anyone's face yet, but I'm waiting for that.
That'd be great. I'll just add one data point. So the very first study I did, this is when I was at an AI startup before Microsoft. I asked participants that had just completed, it was like 30 participants that had just completed this AI moderated interview that I did for that startup. I asked them at the end of it, I'm like, hey, what do you think about, because I know they were like from user interviews panel. So I know they have probably done human moderated interviews. So I just asked them like, which one do you prefer? Some flavor of that. And like 75% of the people preferred an AI moderated interview compared to a human moderated interview. I didn't go any deeper than that. It was just like a last question at the very end of it, just because I wanted to know. So I think generally there's like, yeah, it's not like people are like, it's not the opposite where people, well, I'd rather talk to a human. I think if anything, it's I'd rather talk to an AI.
Agreed.
Yeah. Jess, what was the next question?
Amazing. Hey, do you mind pulling down your slide
sure.
presentation so we can see your faces? Awesome. So yeah, there was a question from Tristan. Are there concerns for data privacy or security on these AI platforms since research may be dealing in intellectual property, invention, that kind of stuff? Like what additional compliance is required? Like do participants have to opt in to being moderated? Like, what, can you talk a little bit more about privacy and security?
I can just get started. Yeah, I think it's like the same rules that you would follow if you're doing a traditional unmoderated study through a platform like user testing, or if you're doing regular human moderated interviews. Obviously, if you're disclosing like confidential prototypes or something like that, you'd want to have follow your organization's best practices regarding that. Regarding like privacy, like I mean, a couple things. One, like any organization will have this go through whatever reviews they want to have it go through. Bigger companies probably have more processes set up in place. So before you just go off and do it yourself, you should always check with your company's best practices. This is not legal advice. The other thing I would say is one thing to be mindful is this is more in the analysis phase, like you've collected a lot of PII, especially the videos themselves. Even the transcripts probably don't have it themselves, but you never know, they might. So just be leery of like dumping stuff into like an LLM that your organization, you wouldn't want to put something in like an LLM that your organization, like on your personal account, like your own like ChatGPT. Yeah. Don't do that because now you've just given away a bunch of potential PII plus potential like confidential data that your company probably wants to keep protected. Matt mentioned using Claude. I of course use Copilot as Microsoft. I think it's easy to forget that's sometimes these third-party tools like ChatGPT are so, at our side. It's like, well, let me just see what ChatGPT thinks. But like, be careful because you don't want to disclose that. People are putting their trust in us, like anything, right? You have to just be very mindful of the personal identifiable information you're collecting, and don't just put that anywhere, even if you think it might be like a nice shortcut. Go ahead, Matt.
Nothing to add. Treat it like any other research tool. Have your IT security team review it, approve it. Don't go totally rogue. Not a great idea.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, real quick. Gnome asked the question that is on all of our minds. Chris, what is your favorite made up product name?
Well, I don't want to give it away because now everyone's gonna know it's fake. But I'll tell you. I use a fake streaming service called Voodora, which I think sounds pretty real. Like it's like, oh, I haven't heard of that one yet. But I won't tell you how to spell it because then I'll give away my secret. But that's my go-to one. But I have like 3 fake ones. Will only tell you one. That's my fake streaming service that I use. I don't know, Matt.
That's great. I don't remember any of the ones to be honest, I use Claude to come up with some of them.
Yeah,
The risk
totally.
is you have to do a double check on Google because who knows if somebody's named their startup.
Exactly.
But no, and another thing I do is make things up at the feature level too. You know, Claude has voice mode now, but a few months ago didn't have voice mode. So I would say, which of the following things have you engaged with on Claude in the last month? And a bunch of things that we have and some things that we didn't at the moment, and say like, oh, you're saying you've used voice mode on Claude, that's not a thing. You're out. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. There were a lot of questions around the quantity and the quality of work, how much time you spend with the AI platform and moderators and prep there versus how much follow-up is required. Do you sometimes go back to the humans and ask follow-up questions? Like how much analysis do you do? And can you talk a little bit about sort of the payoffs? Like where is you sort of touched on time savings earlier, but maybe go a little more detailed into how much time is spent validating versus prep versus what you would do if you were just talking to people directly.
Do you want to go first, Matt?
I mean, yeah, really quickly, I would say probably more because, you know, if you're doing it yourself, you're starting from scratch in your analysis, you're organically surfacing these things as you go, the things that you think are going to build up to your narrative. Whereas with these tools, it's the opposite approach. You click a button and it's like, here's what we learned. And it's like, you know, as much text as you want it to produce for you. And it becomes your job to winnow things down, to spot check, to validate. And that's just work you didn't have to do before, which is kind of ironic, right? Because like at the end of the day, you're still spending less time on this project, but the components of your time look pretty fundamentally different.
One thing I would add is like, I spend more time preparing for, or prepping, whatever you want to call it, for these AI moderated interviews because I could just wing it. Like I feel pretty confident now that if you gave me a topic, I could do a pretty good like 30-minute interview, maybe even an hour-long interview about any topic. I think it'd be a fun challenge actually. Talk about yogurt. Oh, okay. Like, but you know, you just know as a researcher like how to ask good questions and sort of just listen. Really, it's mainly listening. But it's different with these AI moderated ones. You really have to think what's going to be the flow of the guide. It reminds me of like when I first started as a researcher, and I would write out like 2-page detailed guides. And of course, you never actually follow those, but like the AI actually does follow them. So that's a muscle I've had to almost like relearn that I often don't do if it's just you know, human moderated interviews. Usually I'll come up with bullet points and get stakeholders aligned, but I don't actually write out the questions. Here I'm writing out specifically obsessing about the wording of the questions. So that's a little bit different.
Cool. Here's a really good question from Tristan as well. What modes of research or scenarios would you not use an AI moderator for?
That's a good one.
I haven't done anything that's very usability centric. I don't know about you, Chris. I think they are probably capable of it. I just haven't done it yet. And I think my concern there would be the model's ability to like focus people in on the parts of an experience that are really of interest to me. So that's one thing that comes to mind for me.
Yeah. I have done some usability stuff. I'd say like light usability. I think it's the platforms it'd be amazing if they could like process the screen and sort of observe, like, you know, like in a usability test, a lot of it is just observing what people didn't click on or like what they didn't say. So obviously you can't get that yet. I'm sure the tools will get there. But in the meantime, like I found it to be one nice thing is if it's a very simple task, like can people figure out how to get past this one step or find a thing on a page? You can, I'd say if it's a simple thing, the nice thing is you can have the dynamic follow-up questions. So I think it's good for that. But if it's a complicated usability test, I wouldn't default to AI moderated as my like go-to method. I would probably do it myself, or I'd probably just do it myself. Even unmoderated like through user testing is probably not good for a really complicated thing. The other thing I would add is like I mentioned this before, the opportunity cost for doing these is pretty low. So almost like when in doubt, just do it. And then like I don't know, if the data is not helpful, it's not helpful. Don't do it with like 100 people and spend a bunch of money, but do it with 5 and see if there's something useful. It might surprise you when it's helpful versus not helpful. But yeah,
Can I use that as a real quick segue to maybe like a little bit of a spicy take to leave us with? I think one assumption I had going into my experimentation with these tools is that like, oh, the value prop of the scale of a survey, but the depth of an interview is very compelling. But after the first few times I used these tools, I realized, oh, the beauty of qualitative research is that you don't really always need 100 people. Sometimes you can still just do 20, even if it's moderated by an AI. I have found that oftentimes when I'm doing AI moderated studies, it's not with more than a couple dozen people. And part of my motivation there is to keep firm control of the quality of participants and control of my analysis. Maybe my behavior will change. Maybe I'll get more and more adventurous as my use of these tools evolves. But I just wanted to share that as a learning as well.
That's great.
Awesome.
I don't want to have time. Go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're right at time. I'm gonna turn it back over to Raymond. And I think I don't know what's next, but thank you both. That was amazing, like back and forth right off the cuff Q&A.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jess.
So fantastic. Oh yeah, Jess, be thinking of our book winner. We need to award our book winner. But I just want to say to Chris and Matt, it's just so fabulous that you've shared your experience and helped so many, right? You two are further along this learning curve than most of us. And you've just helped so many people today. And thank you.
Thanks. We're trying.
In your humble way. You two are amazing. This was really a fantastic session. So just 2 things. The next AI Club is September 19th. So it's a Friday, 3rd Friday in September, 2 months from now. We'll announce the topic when it's,
When we figure it out.